An evening of magic and music.
And a look at survival arts.
Plus the art of flamenco dancing.
And bowling.
All this and more on Artifacts next. Hello, I'm Phill Lindsay over at the MCDA.
And I'm Janet Zahn with the Office of Film, Video, and Recording for the City of Minneapolis.
And this is Artifacts,
where variety is the hot spice of life.
And so we've got a spicy, lively show today, starting with Janet's first guest, Tim Scott. He's an independent film and television producer who's recently been pitching his comic projects in Los Angeles. You'll have some laughs and see some clever clips from Let's Bowl.
Tim's a really funny guy. I'm looking forward to my conversation with him, as I'm sure you are looking forward to your conversation with Susan de Palma of Zorongo Flamenco.
Yes, indeedy. Susana will be showing us a clip of her work. It's very strong stuff. And we'll also hear about their upcoming performance, Garden of Names, which opens October 3rd.
Then Phill will welcome the esteemed Evan Maurer, director of the Minneapolis Institute of Arts.
That's right, followed by a quick visit from Michael Rudolph and Magical Mia, who will be telling us about an evening of magic and music.
And last but certainly not least, Phill talks with Allison, Bondy, Amy Strickland Johnson, and Laura Yost, who are the heart and soul of Folwell Middle School's Survival Arts program.
It's an excellent lineup of guests from start to finish.
So prepare yourself now to enjoy a full hour of Artifacts.
Let's bowl.
Tonight on Let's Bowl, Bob Glassman, he lives in a 1,200 square foot home. And early Bob Pansleep, he has a college education. They'll go head to head right here tonight on Let's Bowl.
Nice to see you, and welcome everyone to another exciting edition of Let's Bowl from Wallabies Lanes in scenic Hilltop, Minnesota.
All right. Boy, do we have a good show tonight.
Oh, we do indeed, but let's first introduce the people who help make it happen here. And of course, on the keyboards tonight, it's
Butch filling in for Ernie.
Which is still our prize hauler, though.
That's
and
right.
The lovely Heather Bawada keeping score and running the numbers.
Lovely Heather.
And of course, speaking of lovely, they are the loveliest. The Queen Pins.
All right.
Welcome, it's Peggy and Audrey.
Those Queen Pins.
Oh. But of course, the stars of the show, as always, are the contestants, and we have a couple of great competitors tonight. A man who cooks on television when he's not bowling. Make him feel welcome right over here. It's Bob Glassman.
Come on down, Bob.
All right, Bob. Nice to have you, Bob. And we are also proud to introduce tonight a man who bowls and has bowled from New Orleans.
Ooh.
His name is early Bob Pansleeve. Here he is, Bob.
New Orleans.
Nice to have you.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Janet Zahn with the Office of Film, Video, and Recording for the City of Minneapolis. And with me is Mr. Tim Scott. Welcome, Tim.
Welcome.
Tim is an independent entertainment producer.
That's correct.
And you are responsible for Let's Bowl.
Yeah, that's the proper way to phrase it. I'm responsible.
Tell me how that all came together. I think it's just a hoot. Really great fun.
Well, about 12 years ago, my internship was Bowlerama on Channel 9, and it was, a real serious bowling show, and I would always think as I was cleaning up used coffee glasses and donuts, half-eaten donuts, that, this would be kind of a funny show if it was funny. Because it was just a straight bowling show, and they were pretty serious about it. So I kind of kept that in the back of my mind for 12 years.
And finally,
I just said, well, I'm going to try this. So I called Meredith Cable and begged their truck from them, and called a couple friends and all my tech friends and said, I want to try this idea. Can you come out on a Tuesday at 5:30 a.m. because we only had the truck in the morning?
and they all said,
And they said, yeah.
cool.
I've been fortunate. I have a good group of friends that I work with that are
Talented, funny.
really talented and willing to work for free when I have these crazy ideas.
These crazy ideas that you have, I wanted to tell our audience that my first introduction to Let's Bowl was at a meeting last year or last winter with ITVA, and you were on a panel of people that were talking about producing from the heart. It's people that were, besides doing kind of their regular day job, their regular shtick, were also really working and had a dream to do something that meant a little bit more to them. And you were one of those people, and of course you had me laughing and rolling in the aisles with actually the clips from Let's Bowl. But I'm kind of curious how you managed to do this. How you
I shoplift a lot.
You shoplift.
Subsidize my income by a heavy routine of shoplifting. Electronic items mostly.
Do you really find that to be the best route?
No, actually, if you can get jobs videotaping weddings, you can make more money and you don't have to worry. So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, producing from the heart. I don't know. With me, it's kind of like producing with no money.
Same thing.
Yeah, I think I'm just real fortunate that I have, like I say, a group of people that I've worked with in the past at CVN when the Home Shopping Network, Cable Valley Network was going up. And I have a lot of actor friends that are really talented, and a lot of them now that are out in Los Angeles and moving up the ladder, so I'm kind of looking for new talent, because they've all been successful. The minute you're successful, you leave me.
Oh.
So I think, what I do is I just do stuff. It's kind of, I hate that phrase, just do it, but I'm basically, I really don't know anything. But I'm really good at picking up the phone and asking for free stuff. And I'm good at literally picking up the phone and talking to people. Yeah, it's really what I do.
So you've got this Let's Bowl show. I know you're working on another show. Can you talk about that one?
Yeah, just real briefly, it's about inmates. It's about convicts in outer space. We can't afford to build prisons anymore. So we shoot them into space in used trailer homes, and they orbit the Earth. In a trailer home, and it's about the people in the trailer and the living conditions and living with each other, 3 men and 3 women, and
these are convicts.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Not real mean ones, kind of like shoplifting people.
Some of your friends.
Some of my, yeah. So there's a lot of flashbacks. They just tell stories basically about their past, and we go into flashbacks. So,
is this a concept, or have you shot something yet?
We're scheduled to shoot on September 7th and 8th.
Here in the cities?
Yeah. One at my home, one day at my home, and one day at a trailer court.
And this will give you an entire, are you going to do just a 10-minute segment, or?
Well, I pitched the idea to Fox and NBC in July, and they kind of went, oh, they laughed, and they thought it was neat, but they kind of went, well, we might kind of need to see something. So it's kind of what I'm good at doing is getting something on tape and coming in with tape. So that's it's good in the pitching process, because then they know exactly what your tone is.
Right.
And then it's also good that it kind of sets a precedent of what you want the show to be. So if you get money behind it and suits are involved in decision making, you can kind of go, well, that's not what I brought in originally.
Right. So how did you get to Fox and NBC to pitch your project?
I just picked up the phone.
You did not.
Well, yeah, seriously. I've been fortunate because I was with Mystery Science Theater. And it's kind of this weird process of like leapfrogging and riding on backs. You have to have some kind of credit. You either have to have a credit that gets you through the door, that makes you viable or legitimate, or you have to already have a meeting somewhere. And then so if you have a meeting at Fox, then you call NBC, well, I'm meeting with so-and-so over at, and then they're like, well, okay, well then, it's because it's kind of weird. They work out of fear, know. They don't want to miss a good idea.
Right.
So if someone else is seeing, then, well, we want to see it too then.
Yeah. So you got to see both Fox and NBC.
Yeah.
Out in LA.
Yeah, in Los Angeles.
So what are people looking for when you go into this pitch, and especially comedy? I mean, everybody has, there's got to be a bazillion comedy ideas, and how do you make yours different for these folks?
It kind of changes every day what they want.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I go in, I don't, like, for instance, we went to Nickelodeon.
Right.
We didn't have anything for Nickelodeon. None of our ideas were Nickelodeon ideas, but we just went in to form a relationship, to say, hi, I'm in Minneapolis, this is what I do, here's some things I've been doing, and then also to ask, what are you looking for right now? Or, what might you be looking for over the next year? And then that way I can come back to Minneapolis and kind of format ideas for what they might be looking for.
Was Nickelodeon, are they in LA or New York?
They're in New York.
Okay.
Yeah.
New York and pitching in LA versus pitching in New York. What are the differences?
Well, New York will tell you right away no, right in the meeting, or they'll just call you the next day. They seem to be, the people in New York are a little more, yes, no, like it, don't like it.
Right.
LA's a little more smiley. Great,
Yeah.
And they get back to you. But I will say, everybody so far, except for one network, has been incredibly nice and really really nice. Just no, we only had one bad meeting, and we knew that it was going to be bad, so we were prepared.
So what's your eventual goal? What would you like to see happen with your product?
I'd like to see. I'd like to get a deal, any deal, big or small. Just want a deal.
Yeah.
But I would like to produce it here in Minneapolis, like we did at Mystery Science Theater.
Are people amenable to that you're talking with? To you're pitching your idea and you say, I want to do it here.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. A lot of times it doesn't get that far.
Yeah.
When it has, it's like they don't go. They're not too shocked by it, but they're like, well, we would have to think about that.
Right. That's
yeah.
something else to consider. And you are also working here in the Twin Cities in your free time as a variety. You do lots of different things in the film business, and right now you have some exciting things happening.
I'm working with Sutter Home Productions, and I've been fortunate. Mark Sutterholm gave me the opportunity to write and then direct some commercials. And, in fact, I'm leaving for a meeting after here.
Oh, very
with
exciting.
Paper Warehouse. So I'm trying to move. I used to do commercials. It's funny because I used to do commercials at CBN. That's what my job was. And then I went to Mystery Science Theater and did TV. And now I'm like going back to commercials.
And then eventually back to TV.
Yeah,
you
and then
hope.
hopefully back to TV.
Yeah.
But I enjoy both. So.
Yeah. Well, I like your work and I like your attitude.
No.
I hope things go well for you,
Thank you.
and keep me posted, and I will keep our viewers posted.
All right. I love your show. I watch it all the time.
Oh, thank you.
I do.
I'll have you on many times.
But the studio, it seems a lot bigger on TV.
It's a
Folks at home, there's a refrigerator right behind my head.
yeah. I get hungry between segments. Thanks very much for
You're
being
welcome.
with us, Tim. Appreciate
you.
it. Still to come on Artifacts, Evan Maurer from the Minneapolis Institute of Arts and a look at Folwell Middle School's Survival Arts program. But first, Phill interviews Susana de Palma of Zorongo Flamenco right after this clip from one of their shows.
Well, what you just saw was a clip, an excerpt from a production that Zorongo Flamenco will be doing next month, early next month at the Southern Theater. And we're going to talk a little bit about it, but the passion in there and the excitement and the story, the theme of it, is really what makes me so very pleased to have as my next guest Susana de Palma, who is, I believe, the heart and soul of Zorongo Flamenco.
Thank you.
Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start with some basics, and then we'll get into Garden of Names in a little bit. Zorongo Flamenco, for those who aren't familiar, what is your company? It's a dance theater. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Zorongo Flamenco is the only professional Spanish dance or flamenco dance company in the Midwest, which is no surprise, I'm sure. And we began in about 1982 with my former husband, guitarist Michael Hauser, and myself. And of course, I had lived and worked and studied in Spain. And I came back to try to have a family life of sanity away from España and the gypsies and the craziness that is flamenco, and trying to balance those two worlds, going back and forth. So we've formed a company that would really dedicate itself to the performance of authentic traditional flamenco in all its different facets, music, guitar, and of course dance.
Yeah.
But I also at that time was inspired by Salvador Távora, who's a director in Spain, in Andalusia, to do theater flamenco, which is a theatrical expression, mainly with tones of human rights issues and,
Well, it's very
the
evident in this piece that you're
contemporary
working
life.
on, yeah. So the theater part of the dance theater has to do with the themes and the content of what you're
Right.
talking about.
So yes, all within, using traditional flamenco as our base, as the source, and not, really exploiting that, but using those elements and the power of flamenco to tell stories that contemporary audiences can relate to and that American audiences can enter with a sense of familiarity.
Well, you mentioned the intensity of España. And then what, part of the year you're over here in Minnesota. Yeah,
I
sure.
know, it's just
I mean, that must have been
strange.
soup to nuts. I mean.
It is. I think
Yeah.
it's a wonderful balance in that but there's no place like Spain, and now Madrid is like Paris was, I think, in the 30s and 40s. The life just, it doesn't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't close up about 1 o'clock
no,
as
no,
here.
No,
I take
that's
it.
when you go out.
That's when you head out.
That's when you go out and you stay out till 4 or 5 in the morning, and the life doesn't stop, and the artistic productivity is just, it's beyond.
Which disciplines? Is it dance, obviously?
Dance,
Is it in the visual?
music, jazz, theater, the museums.
Yeah.
It's the galleries. It's just in the streets. It's all over.
Were
It's
you there
absolutely
as
amazing.
far back as Franco's regime?
Oh, I remember.
And
Franco's
was that,
regime.
I'm guessing, was that not the big switch then?
No.
No, it was during then was
No.
all the big growth of the arts and everything as well?
Since then,
Really? Okay.
now it'll be interesting to see what happens because they're having what I hope doesn't happen to us, in that they had a big victory of the right.
Oh, I see.
Resurgence of the right, and so all the people on the equivalent of the National Endowment lost their jobs the following day after the election. So, it's money. We think it's difficult here, but in Spain, it's almost impossible unless you're one of the few government-sponsored arts organizations, and so that is certainly one of the benefits for Zorongo to be here, because the Twin Cities and Minnesota has been very generous in supporting flamenco. I think they feel it's probably a public service to have a little passion.
Well, it's certainly refreshing to see you dance and to know that you're part of the community, and so I'm glad you're here. Let's find out a little bit about how you connected with this story that you're now telling as Garden of Names. Again, a very serious, intense story, great tragedy, ongoing tragedy for the people of Argentina. How'd you get into that?
Well, after 20 years of doing beautiful dances and pretty dances, I think the time comes in an artistic career that you have to figure out that there has to be more to it than all of the ego surroundings, and that you want to give back to the privilege that you've had to be an artist. And I think I was going through a little bit of a transition there when one of my best friends, Barbara Chester, who was the former director of the Center for Political Torture Victims here, met me in Tucson, where I was giving a workshop, and handed me this book called Imagining Argentina by Lawrence Thornton, and said that this book really is the most accurate description of her clients. And to read it, and I read it on the airplane, and I just saw the images were just right for flamenco, and certainly the passion and the power of the story. So I came home and I just decided that's a project that I really felt in my heart that I wanted to do.
How
and
long-
it's taken 2 years
I was going to ask
to
that.
do it.
A couple years to essentially choreograph it, put the story into your feet and into your body, and to put it together. With whom are you collaborating?
With the author Larry Thornton, who will be with us, with one of the most interesting, exciting composers in America, Pedro Cortés, who's gypsy, and his musicians that are coming from New York, Jeff Bartlett, lighting designer at the
Master
Southern
lighting
Theater,
technician.
Allison Morris, who's an animator, oh my goodness, flamenco singer Manolo Segura. And we have an advisory board that's been on with us for a year, comprised of people from Amnesty International, Linda Valerian for the Center of Political Torture, Pam Costain from Resource Center for the Americas, the Resource Center, and the Advocates for Human Rights, the Loft. So it's really been a community effort, like NAP Theater, Pam Nice, who is consulting director. So it's been a real effort to really bring the issue of the importance of art, because really the piece is about hope. It's about how the imagination and art is our greatest tool for survival, and which is a really needy message at this time where artists are in such danger of becoming disappeared themselves if the Republicans have their way about it. And also about political torture, which certainly is practiced continually in the world that we live in.
I believe the point in the excerpt that we just showed before we introduced you, I would like to think anyhow came from that point at where there was a little bit more hope, a little more strength coming back to the victim otherwise. I guess that's an interpretive thing that both you and the audience will have to make up your mind for. But my sense was at the end that although there was grief and horror, there wasn't necessarily a sense that this is the way it has to be. Did I get that right? Or?
I think that's true, but after researching this issue for 2 years, I think it's the way it's always going to be. I think it's human nature, that there's always
that
going
we'll have
to be
these episodes.
That there's always has been and there always will be. And it's very interesting to see how, and you mentioned the Franco era, that actually political torture has not ever, even with the Holocaust, been as extreme as during the Spanish Inquisition. And that how these torturers learn techniques from one another, that the Argentinians learned from the Nazis, the tortures that are going on in Bosnia have been learned from the Argentinians, and how they just pass their wonderful techniques on, and that it seems to be something that, but it's how we can avoid it, how we can take, really overcome it for our individual survival and the survival of our cultures.
I'd like to think that by naming it, by putting the light on it, that's salutary.
And to remember that even in our culture, which is so safe, and even though our government has sponsored many of these regimes, that we just have to keep that in our historical memory. We have to keep that alive to ensure our own sense of freedom, and also to take greater responsibility to the cruelties that happen in the world. And I think art is really one of the most powerful ways to do that, because so many of the organizations that are working with this are really excited about this project, because they say in this information saturated society, people can't read another newsletter, and that they're losing their sensitivity, and so certainly through beautiful music and beautiful animation, and dance, movement, lighting, all of the magic that is in the theater, the people will be sensitized to remember and to really take some sort of awareness and action to make a better world.
We have just a moment left. If people want to find out more about Zorongo Flamenco, the organization, there's a number they can call?
Yes, it's 337-0701.
Okay, we'll get that up on the screen. And if people want to see the performances, they begin October 3rd at the Southern, and we also have a number we'll get up on the screen that they can call for tickets, specifically for that.
Exactly.
So, Susana, thank you very much. A pleasure to have you on. Good luck with the production.
Oh, I need it. Thanks.
All right. Well, next up, I'll be talking with Evan Maurer. He is the director of the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. And just a little bit later in the show, you'll find out why numerous entertainers are putting on an evening of magic and music at the Guthrie Theater. Oh, and by the way, if you have comments, questions, or if there's anything you'd like to know more about what you've seen on Artifacts, you can call the City Cable 34 hotline at 673-2234. And now a quick look at the Celebration of Life mural that's being constructed up on the corner of Olson Memorial Highway and Lyndale Avenue North. Then I'll be right back with Evan Maurer.
This is a gateway to the north side. It helps dispel some of the horrible myths and stereotypes and misconceptions about the north side. We're creating something beautiful here. In addition, we're creating something that can hopefully inform and inspire the community by creating these African icons that will tell this creation story.
These walls are sound barrier walls, but in a lot of senses, we always got the feeling that they were barrier walls too, keeping people in, keeping people out. And the walls, the mural is called Celebrate Life. And we know behind these walls, going to full north side, are very positive images. But too many times we get the negative, stereotypical kind of images, the easy story, right? And so with this, we want to give a new energy, a new life, so it'll be sort of a portal, not a doorway or a gateway, but something that you have to see through, more spiritually than you do physically, And so this is sort of a portal going into the spirit of the North Side, which is a multicultural group of people.
What it means to the community is that they finally have some light to look upon instead of all the darkness that is around this area and what it's got a name for being, very violent and stuff. And this is just showing that we're not violent and we are trying to do something about our community.
Oh yeah, very much so. I think this would be positive, no question about that. Like I said before, a lot of these walls are kind of old, dirty, run down, and, want to add a little bit of color to it. Instead of always only giving it a good white primer, want to add some colors, some designs, I say the more colors the better, so.
Well, that's a very nice project going on up there in North Minneapolis, so I urge you, while in process and, of course, afterwards, to get up there and take a look at it. Well, I'm very pleased, for a couple of reasons, to have as my next guest Evan Maurer, who is the director of the Minneapolis Institute of Arts. Evan, thanks for being on the show.
Well, great to be with you.
And I'm pleased because of the Institute. I mean, it's one of our significant and premier arts organizations in the Twin Cities, right. But it's also a place I happen to have worked once upon a time, so It's close to my heart, and it's good to have you here. Evan, you came back to the Institute about 8 years ago, and you have done some wonderful things there. And I wondered if you could just, for those who aren't familiar, and I know that's a small number of people in the Twin Cities, tell us about the mission of the Institute of Arts, even where it is and what your major holdings are, perhaps.
Very good. Since 1915, we've been in South Minneapolis in the Whittier neighborhood on 24th Street and 3rd Avenue, Stevens. It's a magnificent building. As a matter of fact, I even brought a slide.
Oh, great. Let's take a look here.
In case you'd like to see it. It's McKim, Mead & White, one of the great neoclassical buildings in our cities. In fact, that firm also developed the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
I was unaware of that.
And they did that right before they did the Institute.
Okay, so that was their tester, and then they came over here.
Then they came to us. As a matter of fact, the first director of the Institute, we borrowed from the Met for a while, Mr. Breck. And so we've had a lot of ties with that institution. And I think that's really interesting in terms of what our predecessors thought about when they created this great institution. They wanted to bring a major city art museum, like the Met in New York, to Minneapolis for not only people of our city and St. Paul as well, but also for the region. And so since 1915, that's what we've been doing, which is building a world-class collection that describes world culture for like 5,000 years of world culture and more from every major continent and artistic tradition in the world.
Absolutely.
Africa, Asia, Americas, Europe. And to bring them to the public in an open way of effective education. Yeah. That's also a very big part of our mission.
And that's been part of what you've done in the last 8 years or so, is that outreach to other populations that may not have otherwise been served there very well. Right. You've opened up the doors. It's a free museum.
We made it a free museum in September of 1989. And it was part of our outreach program that is a large reaching series of events, and from exhibitions to family day programs to teenage programs in the neighborhood to working with South High School on an Art Smart program. We're all over the city because we believe that our mission is to serve the people who are our neighbors. That's our major drive now.
I really can't imagine the Twin Cities without the Institute of Arts. I mean, it's just difficult to imagine that.
Well, it's been here for a
Yeah,
long time.
yeah.
And like City Hall, it's been here for a long time, and it's what we rely on to make things work in an artistic sense. And with other arts organizations in town, indeed, the Institute's been taking a big role in public school education.
Partnerships and the like.
Partnerships with public schools throughout the city and throughout our metro region even. And we bring over 150,000 kids free of charge on free tours through
Wow.
the museum, through volunteer programs. We have a program where over 2,000 parents get trained every year to bring art into the classrooms in the form of posters and slides, which prepare those students for their visit, their field visit to the Institute.
Very interesting.
So we've enlisted and get as volunteers literally thousands of Minneapolis parents.
Right, nice way to keep
who are
that family working around the arts and keeping
Indeed.
them together. Good for you. I didn't know about that
Family
program.
family activities and the family audiences is really, I think, our major focus. And one that we're going to be working on developing even more in the coming years.
Evan, you're nice enough to bring a few images, just very broadly outlining sort of the scope of the holdings. Do you want to walk us through some of that?
Well, I'd be glad to. We have about over 85,000 works of art in the Art Institute.
And some very busy registrars.
That's a busy office. And one I wanted to start with is probably one of the most popular, one of the most famous, and it's from China. And it was collected by T.B. Walker, the man who then his foundation started the Walker Art Center. But what Mr. Walker collected were European paintings and Chinese jades. And I think this is one of the community's favorites. It's the Great Jade Mountain. It's an 18th century object that's the third largest piece of jade in the world, carved jade in the world. It's 285 pounds of jade. It's just enormous like this. And it's carved into the scene of scholars and poets sitting in pavilions in the midst of a mountain. It's
beautiful.
So you can really visit a landscape when you go see the Jade Mountain. And it's also a signal of the great Asian collections that we have. In China, in Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia. Japanese art is one of the finest parts of our museum and will be featured in the new galleries, which actually we're just starting to build now, Phil.
Oh, excellent.
A brand new set of galleries that's going to add 25,000 square feet more gallery space. Plus, we're also going to add new classrooms, new kids' activities rooms. So we're building for Minneapolis' future.
Indeed.
And Chinese art is a big part of that
Big part of
future
that.
as well. One of the pieces that to show you another great strength, of course, is European art. And European painting we're famous for around the world. And I think this painting by Claude Monet, which is a painting of a single grain stack in a field, in a farm near Giverny, where Monet lived in the 1890s when he painted this work of art. This epitomizes the quality of the Institute's collection, especially in European art and 19th century French Impressionist art. This picture, of course, got a lot of publicity when we bought it several years ago. It made 2-color issues in the newspaper, and people still flock to see it. And indeed, when there was the big Monet show at the Art Institute of Chicago, this was in it and was thought to be really one of the stars of the show. And so that's the quality that we find at the Institute.
It perhaps shouldn't have to be said, but people really ought to get there in person and see this art. I mean, it's one thing to see it in a newspaper or in a catalog, but get there.
And that's the fun of the thing. This museum belongs to you. It's an open public museum. It's free of charge. And it's one of the best museums in the United States. People come from all over the world to see our museum. We should come from the north side and the south side, and
that's right,
the east and the west side.
Get over to 3rd
right
Avenue
down
South.
to 3rd Avenue South and come see it, because they're great treasures. And I think the range of things is also indicated by this next slide, which also got a lot of publicity very recently. And it's a very important piece of African sculpture from the country of Nigeria, found in the city of Ife, which is the capital, certainly the religious capital of the Yoruba people of Nigeria. This piece goes back to between 1200 and 1400 AD. It would correspond to early medieval times in Europe. It's made of terracotta, and it's the portrait of a queen or a woman of very high status in society at that time. And what is so particular about it is its large size. It's just a little under life size. And its extraordinary naturalism. people don't usually think of naturalism when they think of African art, but this shows the extraordinary quality of the African artist and their ability to not only show form, but also the emotions and the spirit and the soul of the individual that's captured by the artist in their creative process. We have a large African art collection. It's will be going into new quarters in the next year and a half, and I think it'll be a very exciting opportunity for us all to learn about the cultures of Black Africa. And then I wanted to show another slide of a work of art that's rather larger than most of them in art.
Hard to fit it in the walls.
Hard to fit it, bring it inside.
Yeah.
So we decided to keep it on site. It's what's known as the Purcell Cuts House, and it's a beautiful prairie school house, the most famous in the Twin Cities, about 1915 on Lake Place in Minneapolis, parallel to East Lake of the Isles Parkway. It's about, I think, 26th Street. This was William Purcell's own house. He was the great designer of the firm of Purcell and Elmsley, and one of the leading prairie school designers. And prairie school means that they're low, beautiful, horizontal emphasis in the buildings, clean lines, trying to fit into the prairie landscape. And of course, Frank Lloyd Wright was perhaps the most famous of these individuals, but Purcell was just as famous as Wright at that time. This was his own house, and soon after it was bought by the Cutts family. And just about 12 years ago, when Mr. Cutts passed away, he willed the house to us.
That's how it came into your possession.
Right, and then we renovated it. And it won national awards for renovations and recreations. You can visit this house on regular hours. Just call the Institute. It's a great gem filled with period antiques from around 1914, 1920. And if you're into computers, you can take a virtual tour of the house because we've done a CD-ROM program. Only, I think, 1995, you get this program, put it in your computer, you can go into the house, around the house, look all around the rooms, move your cursor, go in and out. You take a whole tour and see every bit of this little house, just as if you were there. So there are two ways of accessing that. And that just leads me to one other thing I'd like to bring up, and that is how the Institute has been working very hard on the leading edge of museums around the world in computer-based learning.
Yes.
We have now 8 wonderful programs that are funded by the General Mills Foundation in areas all over the museum where you can just sit with a touch screen TV that has a computer program and learn about the art in its context and then be right there to see the original object.
Right, and you're, as you say, you're leading on the cutting edge of that sort of museum technology interface.
We have a great crew at the museum who does this. They've won international awards for their work.
Evan, we've got just a moment left. I know there are numerous exhibitions coming up. There's one in particular that's opening in September.
In September 14th, Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. It's from the Mexican Cultural Arts community in Chicago. And as you know, November the 2nd, All Souls Day, is in Mexico, the Day of the Dead, the day when families go to the cemeteries to honor their departed and loved ones. And they create sculptures, both formal and informal sculptures, and altars that show their love for their dear departed people. And this is what we're showing at the museum. It's very colorful, it's very exciting, and will allow us to learn a lot about our Hispanic traditions here in the United States.
Far more to talk about an encyclopedic museum than we have time for here. If people want to find out more or just get hours, there's a general number they can call. 870-3131.
3131. I never call. Why should I call?
That's right. You're always there. Call up. Maybe Evan will answer the phone. So
hope to see you.
Evan Maurer, thank you very much.
Phill,
Good overview.
Great to see you.
Now, Michael Rudolph, who is a mime, and Magical Mia, who is a magician, are both performing for an evening of magic and music. That'll be at the Guthrie on September 30th. You'll hear about it right after we take a look at this. Well, there's an event that promised to be a lot of fun, and it's for a very good cause. It's happening very late this month, and I've got 2 of the people that are going to be involved with it right here with me. We have Michael Rudolph, mime artist. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, Phil.
And thank you for showing us that trunk. We'll see more of that in a bit. And Magical Mia, who's a magician. Now, they are two of the performers who are going to be at a big event later in the month. Michael, tell us a little bit about this event and who's it for?
Well, it's for the Ronald McDonald House, and basically the Ronald McDonald House supplies housing for free for families out of town whose children are in the hospital here. And all the performers are providing their services completely for free. It's September 30th, Monday night.
Yep, at the Guthrie Theater.
The Guthrie Theater. There's a pre-show from 6:30 to 7:30. Come early because there's magicians all over the lobby.
And at the Guthrie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that sounds great. Are you going to be one of the magicians?
Yes, I am.
Now, you'll be on stage as well as in the lobby?
Yes.
That sounds great. Okay. Well, now, in just a moment, we're going to get a chance to get just a sample, a taste of what these two performers will be doing there. And there are other folks there, too, as well, musicians and magicians and at least one mime, right? Okay. Well, why don't we take a look right now at something that Magical Mia is going to do, just a sampling of what she'll be doing September 30th at the Guthrie. That was wonderful. Thank you, Magical Mia. Now, that was just a sampling. I'm sure she's going to be doing a lot of other things, and there'll be other performers there as well. Now, at the start of this segment, we got a moment to just see a little bit of the illusion that the mime artist Michael Rudolph was doing, and he's going to show us a little bit more about that right now. Well, I'll tell you, I think I'd much rather take the mime on a trip than that suitcase. But that's an example of some of the performance you'll see at the Guthrie Theater, September 30th. It's a benefit for the Ronald McDonald House. Sounds like a good cause. Coming up, 3 women who have a dream that they're sharing, passion for some education down at Folwell Middle School, the Survival Arts Program. Stay tuned. We'll be back with those guests right after this. Now, of course, the aforescreened quote is not necessarily of the opinion of the management here, but we just thought you'd kind of like to see what Brooks Atkinson had to say about audiences. Well, I'm very happy right now to have 3 women on the show whom I've just been recently getting to know. They're involved with a wonderful program down in South Minneapolis, and I'm going to let them talk about it. But first, I'm going to introduce them. Now, stay tuned, because we have with us Amy B. Strickland Johnson, Laura M. Yost, and Allison A. Bondy. Welcome, one and all. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Is that like a school test thing there, where you've got to use all the initials and everything, or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, you're all over at Folwell Middle School, is that right?
Right.
Survival Arts Program, that's what I got to know. Do you want to just start out, tell me a little bit about the Survival Arts Program, how you got the idea and what it's all about?
Sure. Want to go ahead? Okay. Laura and I have taught together for about 4 years, and Allison has been at Folwell for about 10 years. And last year, Laura and I decided that we were finally going to put some ideas into fruition and try to come up with a program that would meet the needs of our students. And that's how Survival Arts came to be. Laura can talk a little bit about the historical background about Survival Arts.
And this is very interesting, yes. Share with us, if you will.
Folwell is a very diverse school, and studying multicultural history has been an interest of mine as an English teacher for a good 5 years now. And in studying multicultural history, I discovered, along with my students, many social reformers who were educators who really made a very big difference for many, many people. And those people are Booker T. Washington, Prudence Crandall, Jane Addams, and Mary McLeod Bethune.
Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned, I think the last 2 women were involved with Hull House.
Jane Addams and her friend Ellen Starr were involved in Hull House.
Down in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is part of the inspiration. We would call these, at least I would think of these as settlement houses, as it were.
Yes.
And Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, is not unfamiliar with that kind of activity. So the idea then is to give these kids that you work with sort of an extra shot, something they wouldn't ordinarily get.
Correct.
In the regular school curriculum. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what you're hoping and intending to put into this?
Well, we're hoping that the students are going to get a very integrated, hands-on curriculum that will allow us to get out into the community and experience. We have 5 business partners that they will be working with: Marquette Bank, the Jungle Theater, the Reuse Center, Minnesota Center for Book Arts, and Marquette Bank.
Oh, Corporate Neighborhood.
Corporate Neighborhood Organization.
Okay, so the neighborhood organization itself is involved as one of the
Correct.
partners.
Yes.
Very impressive.
And also to bring the community into Folwell as a resource.
Yeah. Now, not long before we taped this segment, I was able to go out on a little site visit with you, and you're actually looking and hoping to get hold of a piece of property.
That's right.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, there are neighborhood revitalization program dollars available right now for the city of Minneapolis and neighborhoods, and we have the dream of putting together a youth activity center that would be a lab site that duplicates life in a house, from how the house was built, how the house needs to be brought to code, what kinds of uses the house will be for, whether it's large kitchen to accommodate many people, maybe an art studio, the basement being perhaps a photography lab, those kinds of things. But to get the kids to study architecture, woodworking, refinishing furniture, measurement, how things go together, and then also the municipal aspects of keeping your property in.
Oh, kind of the good neighbor aspect.
That's
here,
right.
How to be a good neighbor on the block. How old are these kids?
They're 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students that we're focusing on. That's the middle school as 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And what we would like in our program is to have a cross-graded, to have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders together in the classroom together, learning, and out in the community together. So we're really looking at a cross-graded team.
As you describe this, and I think it's implicit in what you're doing this because this isn't the regular stuff kids are getting in mid-90s schools. I mean, what is it they're missing in regular curriculum? What isn't working for them?
I think one of our primary focuses or emphasis is having the kids see the connection between their life at home, their life in school, their life in their neighborhood, their community, and tie it all together and see that there's relevancy and relation between all areas and all aspects of their life. And that's really, that's what we're really focusing on is having the kids see connections.
Mm-hmm. Are these kids old enough to be, are some of these parents themselves? I mean, are you up against that sort of situation? They're not quite in that
Not
realm.
quite.
Mm-hmm. But they're encountering a lot of the urban problems that you do. Drugs, gangs a problem, that sort of thing?
Sure.
So you're offering them a positive alternative.
Sure. Absolutely.
Let me ask you a couple of hard questions. What kind of support are you getting? What kind of support do you need?
We have support from our administration, very strong support. We have support from the community, from our partners, as well as other members of the community, families, parents. The kids are very supportive of it, who know of it.
Co-workers.
Co-workers.
Well, that's real important. So when you say it from the administration, you mean right there at Folwell?
Yes.
The principals on board.
That's right.
And other teachers. So they're not looking at this as some aberration by these 3 passionate women that are off doing the survival arts program.
Right.
Okay. What's the role of the arts in this? You mentioned a couple things, woodworking, architecture, and other things. What's the role in that? Why is that important?
Well, I was going to just speak about music because I am the music teacher on this team. And I see music as just a universal thread throughout all of the other subject areas. You can look at English through looking at lyrics in music. You can look at math by duration in music. You can look at science by studying acoustics. You can look at health by studying the physiology of the voice. So I just see it as a very relevant connection between all of the other disciplines.
Discipline-based arts education.
Exactly.
Cool.
We're also concerned about the art of living responsibly and creatively, the daily ritual of surviving with love and joy, where you're enjoying cooking, preparing the vegetables to go into the stir fry, where one is active with handwork, hobbies, those kinds of things that improve just your sense of craftsmanship.
Yeah.
We're also looking at self-sufficiency and how these kids can utilize resources that they have to make gifts, to make a doll, to learn how to organize, to learn how to garden, to help the elderly in their neighborhood, a wide variety of things that I think that we can call art. And just to get them to understand that there's so many resources that are available to them that they just don't even know about, that they're not even familiar with.
And you've already, this idea is not unknown to some of the students that you're working with. What's their initial reaction? Are they excited? Are they puzzled? Are they eager to get into this?
I think a little of both. I think that they are excited because they see the energy that we have, and they know that there's going to be a lot of exciting opportunities for them. And they're a little confused, just wondering how the day might go or those kind of things. You know, what is the day going to look like?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what will that mean? What will actually be different for them when they come into school at, 7:30, 8 o'clock, whenever the day starts? What's different for them as opposed to the conventional kid that's going to a classroom somewhere else?
I think the difference will be the interdisciplinary commitment that the teachers have to help make sense thematically of a topic. For instance, in studying community, they would be studying community from a social perspective, historical perspective in history, communication and language in English class, the community influences in music and the musical influences on community and music class, and then in health and science and math, also reflecting that we are able to learn so much about one thing if we model it so that all those interconnections are made for the kids. And I think that is what's going to help them make that connection that perhaps is missing for many.
Well, now, this show that we're doing right here is running in September. The kids are back in school. How many kids are you going to be working with, and do you stay with the same kids throughout the academic year?
Yes. We have a core group of students that we'll be working with at Folwell, and what we're hoping is that we'll be able to open our doors to allow kids from other teams in the building to be able to come in maybe during certain time periods and that kind of thing to see what we're doing and to be part of what we're doing. So, you know, the numbers are, you know, roughly 100 students or
really?
so.
That's a significant number. We've got just a minute left. A couple quick questions. If people wanted to find out more about the Survival Arts Program, is there a general number at Folwell they can call?
Yes, there is.
Does anybody have that in their head? Because I know I don't.
627-2604.
Okay, thanks. What's the next step?
The next step is working with the neighborhood organization, our arts and business partners, Folwell administration, and all interested people to bring a cohesive plan together that works during the school day, after school, and then for the community at large in many different capacities.
So really integrated, as you were saying.
Yeah, very
That's really
integrated.
impressive. One last quick question. I think I know the answer. Optimistic?
Indeed.
Very extremely.
That's great. Well, best of luck. I'm excited to keep following this. We'll get some updates from you folks.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for being here. Well, Janet will be back to wrap up the show with me in a moment, right after this independent feature film fact. Stay tuned. Well, we're back. Nice lineup of people.
Well, it was just so fun. It was fun thinking about having those people on, and double fun having them.
I like that Tim Scott. That's
He's
funny guy.
He's
funny
such
guy.
a good guy. I hope he succeeds at what he's doing.
Yeah. Looks good. Well, we've got a few things we want to chat about.
Yes.
Quickly, we had the folks on to talk about the evening of magic and music at the Guthrie Theater. Amongst the other folks that'll be at that event, Mike Madden, very good magician. Jerry Johnson does comedy magic. Hondo, who's a well-known magician around here. Magical Mia, who is with us. Trisha and the Toons will be there, along with First Choice, known as the Spirited Backup Band. So a lot of good stuff there. Also, another event to mention real quickly, the College of Art and Design is having their every other year benefit auction. It's going to happen September 28th. There's a phone number you can call if you want, 874-3654. That's a good cause. And there's just a lot of stuff going on.
Oh, I wanted to mention that Joan Wells is now the new executive director at Resources and Counseling for the Arts. She replaces Barbara Davis, who was there for 13 years.
Yeah.
So new person there. That's exciting news.
They do excellent work.
Yes, they do.
Valuable resource in the Twin Cities. Now, I've got to read this, if you don't mind.
You have
this
to.
Has nothing to do with the arts, except maybe peripherally. We did have some sort of variety artists on earlier. This is from the Lakeshore Weekly News back in August. This is a police report, bona fide police report.
I can verify.
July 26th, 8:06 a.m., Stubbs Bay Highway. Several reports of an elephant walking on the shoulder of the road. One complaint said the elephant was out of control. Upon investigation, officers found the elephant and handler had been arriving for a circus and the truck had broken down. The two began walking to town when the elephant spied the lake and got excited. Handler said the elephant liked to play in water and he had to use a bit of force on this elephant to keep the pachyderm from taking a dip. Everything under control. Now, 2 hours later, same police report, a woman called and said her daughter had just seen a huge snake in a neighbor's yard. Officers arrived and found a 6 to 8 foot boa constrictor on the loose.
That's huge.
Circus was contacted to see if they were missing a boa. Negative. The elephant handler offered his assistance. He came over, picked up the boa, deposited it in a shopping bag. Neighborhood boy said he might know who's missing a snake in town. They went over to the lady and she said, well, yes, I've been snake sitting for the last 3 days. When the snake was missing, she neglected to make a report. And then later that day, at an unknown time, a couple reported seeing a cougar at the old Crystal Bay Road at Highway 12. Just a typical day out there in the Lake District.
And don't forget, cat's still at large.
Cat's still at large out there at Crystal Bay Road. So.
And you know what? I think we have another cat still at large here.
Oh my
I think
God.
I couldn't help but mention this. I think Phill is still carrying a torch.
I was heading for the Olympics, actually.
And also the, we are not seeing the tights, but I can assure you that he is wearing tights here.
Yeah, thank God they cropped the picture, or else I think a lot of people would have gone by. 1983, folks. Yep. Yes, I had a life once.
Yes, very.
Yeah. But it's that time of year again, so a lot of fun.
Sounds good.
So, well, we hope you've enjoyed this show. We certainly have. Good guests.
We have.
Next month, by the way, we're going to continue our series at looking at the cultural districts here in Minneapolis. So far, we've done the West Bank Theater District. We did Northeast Minneapolis and the Warehouse District just a couple months ago. And we're going to be looking at the Loring Arts District.
And you have to go to the Artifacts hotline number if anybody has questions.
Oh, yeah. Again, if you have questions or you just want to, let us know, 673-2234 for the Artifacts hotline.
And that's it for this edition. I'm Janet Zahn.
Stay tuned for our calendar of events. I'm Phill Lindsay. We'll see you next time on Artifacts.
I catch a paper, Mondays are really change. I'm standing in the wind, but I never wave bye-bye. But I try, no, I don't believe in trying. Modern love walks beside me. Modern love walks on by. Modern love gets me to the church on time. Church on time terrifies me. Church on time puts my trust in. Church on time puts my trust in God and man. God and man, no confession. God and man, no religion. God and man, don't believe in modern love. Every day is like survival. You're kind of a chameleon. You're my lover, modern rival. Modern love is like survival. You're kind of a chameleon.
Ba-dum-bum. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum.